let's try and involve more people. Let's see if this can become something that's more than just about my brother's story, and ask people to submit their own experiences. At first, it was like, oh my God, this is so exciting. I can't wait to see what this is and what's going to happen. And like, you think of all the different outcomes that might come from this. And then quickly, I just started to feel like, whoa, this is a lot of responsibility all of a sudden. Welcome back to the Burning Boat Show. We're going to try something new here where we are going to do the intro before the episode. Because normally...
Wow, what a revolutionary idea.
Normally we do it in the middle to start the episode, and it's always it can be a little awkward because it feels like there's like a hard, here we go, and cameras are rolling.
Yeah, it forces you to be like, welcome back to blah, 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 this kind of show does this, this, and this. So, Robin.
Yeah, especially when we have a guest on.
Yeah.
So we're just going to start recording them separately.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, we're not recording it separately right now, but we're recording it after we've done the whole podcast.
Yes. The illusion is broken.
So welcome back to the Burning Boat Show. You can support this show on Patreon. Thank you to our Patreons who currently support the show. The link is down below. This week we have a very special guest, Robin Watson, who's here for the next 2 months.
Hello.
To help us with our social media. Yeah. We know Robin from working together on the documentary that we're still working on.
Cool.
And I already said this in the episode.
And
Roll
enjoy the
intro.
episode! We are back for
again.
season 3.
Woo!
Just arbitrary seasons whenever we happen to take a break.
Whenever we take a break, we come back and we say it's a new season, so we
Yeah.
get really excited about it again.
It's just whenever also we do a new intro.
New intro.
Yeah.
Yeah, there'll be a new cool... Well, you will have just seen the intro if you're
Ooh,
watching.
Very nice intro, Robin.
Ooh, nice.
Thank you.
Yep, Robin's here, which is probably the biggest news that we have.
Introduce Robin for us.
We've got Rob. Robin's been on the podcast before.
Yeah.
One of the first 10 episodes you were on the podcast. So Robin, we've known Robin for a while. Robin came and helped us start the company, which is a pretty big deal.
Was actually there before me.
Yeah, Robin showed up before Taylor, a couple days before Taylor.
That's true, yeah.
Helped me film picking him up from the airport when we missed you.
Yeah, that was really
That was a little
sad.
awkward.
We did?
Yeah, we showed up like 5 minutes after he'd gotten out and
Oh,
he was
really?
wandering.
I'm doing this life-changing experience. I show up, I'm like, here we go.
We're not there.
And nobody's there. And I'm like, oh.
And we see you kind of like looking outside.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
So Robin's been with us for a while. That was back in 2018, and we tried to convince him to stay back then, but he
Almost
insisted
did.
on going and
Almost
doing
did.
another year at uni. But now we're in this situation where Robin said that he would be willing to help us out for 2 months with our social media.
Yeah.
Which is super exciting. It's something that we've been struggling to maintain on the side of everything else that we're doing, but it's something we see so much value in putting some time and effort into. So now we have Robin working full time on that. So there's a lot of exciting content coming out soon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And this is kind of like the relaunch of the Burning Boat online presence. I mean, we've literally been non-existent online for the past like month and a half.
Yeah, we've been gone for 2 months for a very good reason.
There's a good reason.
Yeah.
We can't talk about it.
We haven't.
It's a big secret.
We can't talk about it.
We really want to. Basically, we've been putting off this podcast because we want to talk about this so bad.
Yeah. We wanted to come back and be like,
this is where
we're
we've
back.
been.
Get it? That's why we've been gone.
We've been doing this massive project.
But it's been taking so long that it now also, and since Robin came, it doesn't make sense for us to delay really, just to kind of start doing things again.
Yeah.
So we need to start moving on all this stuff.
Yeah.
Because it could be a while still before this other project.
Exactly. And secrets are exciting.
Secrets are exciting.
So you got to tune into the
Very
next
exciting.
episodes to find out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Hopefully soon.
Hopefully.
Oh, it's really
Otherwise,
hard.
yeah.
It's been so hard to like. It's the only thing that we've been thinking about for a really long time.
Yeah. And I was saying it's a really strange situation because at the beginning, working on this project, it was so intense. And I feel like when you do these long weeks without a break, you kind of get in this zone of like, okay, this is the only thing I'm focusing on, and everything else kind of goes out the window.
Literally everything.
And then it kind of transitioned into, okay, we're not working weekends anymore. It's not the most intense thing, but we're still working on it.
Yeah.
And that was a very strange transition for me because I still feel in this weird vacation mode of like, it's not vacation mode, but like this alternate mode of like, I'm so hyper focused on this, we're not doing anything else. And now there's this kind of bit of an awkward transition, I would say, into trying to finish the project and trying to move on with new things.
There've been a few obstacles in terms of you getting here. One being the COVID situation, but another one being just the fact that we really wanted to have a sec to think about what is it that we want to do with our social media. Where do we want to take it? What are we trying to be as a company?
What is our image? What is
our
our vibe?
Who are we? What's even going on?
Who am I?
And we literally, yes.
Yeah.
We've literally just had to, I don't want to say make it up as we go along because that's not true either. It's all based on like, is that what it feels like?
To a certain degree. I mean,
fuck.
I feel like that's what a lot of social media is, at least from the research that I've done about it. It's just like trying things out and seeing what what works. You know?
Yeah, I mean
that's the only way to go.
But we wanted to have something where we're like, Robin, you're here. We're so excited, and this is what we're going to be working on.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
But we've kind of, I think it's also been a positive thing because you've been involved in like coming up with everything as well.
Yeah.
So you've been there from day one in terms of like what's next for us.
That's true.
Which is good.
Yeah.
But I mean, I wanted to say that it's a shame that it's been until we're doing a podcast, but we're so grateful that you're here. And I don't think we've actually said that since you got here.
That's true,
We've been so like just caught up in everything.
Yeah.
I mean, we've definitely been a little bit foggy, I'd say, quite literally. So we're super grateful that you're here, and it's pretty huge.
And you really made that happen, I think, because we were in a mode where it was very hard for us to think about you coming here.
For sure. Yeah.
Because we thought we were going to be done with this secret project,
2 months ago.
Way before you were arriving. We're like, oh, we're gonna have so much time to prepare for Robin and everything, and then you really pulled through, and we're like, guys, I want to book my plane ticket. I want to get this started. I want to do it. So I think that was very.
I mean, it was even to the point where you were like sending us all these ideas and spreadsheets and all this stuff, like even pieces of content.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I just can't think about it right now. I feel like anything I say is just I'm making it up.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's been pretty huge that you're here.
Yeah. And it's way better now too, because I think the whole working remotely is such a hard thing sometimes because you just want to sit at the computer with somebody and just be like,
true.
What if we try this? What if we try this? As opposed to like these kind of very like
once in a week kind of communication.
Yeah, I mean, communication is definitely a lot harder when you're not in the same place.
Yeah.
And especially like what with you guys being so busy with other stuff, it's kind of hard to also focus on things that don't really have anything to do with what you're doing.
And that's another example, not to talk about these abstract things, but the project we're working on is also remote.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's just a very strange way to work. Some things that could take a couple minutes usually, if we were all sitting together, can turn out to take weeks. A full day or longer. Because it just, the back and forth, the time difference and everything, somebody says something, it's not quite understood or it's misunderstood. It's an interesting.
Well, one thing we can say, because this has been said by the person we're working with Amar from Yes Theory, which is super exciting.
Yep.
He's just released a video where he mentioned us in it, so we can say that we're working with Amar.
Yeah,
so
and we're super excited to be working with him again.
It's great. It's going to be good. Let's stop talking about the thing we can't talk about.
Yeah, I know.
I think it would be interesting to talk about what our social media is going to look like, because that is something that we have been working on for the past week and a bit.
Yeah. Do you want to get into like what were your expectations coming here and kind of what have you found? How long have you been here? Like 2.5 weeks?
2.5, 3 weeks.
3 weeks. Okay.
Yeah, around 3 weeks.
3 weeks like today.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
exactly, yeah.
Oh my fucking God.
That's so weird.
That's almost halfway.
Yeah. Feels long and short at the same time.
Yeah.
My expectations. I mean, I honestly kept my expectations very low. Not in a bad way, just because like I had no idea, because you were so busy that I feel like there wasn't all that much you could tell me about what the plan was. And especially with social media, what with it being something that you haven't focused on as much as you'd like to, I thought I'd just wait and see and sort of approach it with all of the knowledge that I've absorbed. I mean, I've read like, I think four social media books over the past like 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I definitely don't come from a background in social media, but I just wanted to bring as much knowledge as I could to the table so that then we could come up with some kind of strategy and see what we could do with it. Yeah.
Because you definitely came in with like a pretty solid strategy, and knowing that it was just that's just like here's an option.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd say that we kind of went in a slightly different direction.
Yeah.
And we still haven't actually implemented the strategy yet.
That's true.
So we're still just working on it.
It's day two.
Day two. We had our first post yesterday.
We had a launch yesterday.
True,
yeah.
We all bet on how many likes the first post would get after not posting for 2 months.
Yeah.
And it went a little crazy.
Surprisingly well.
Yeah, I got like more than double what the highest bet was.
Yeah.
In like less than the time.
Yeah.
That we were.
Was this the most amount of likes that you've gotten?
No, probably after.
No, I mean the post that we posted the day that the Seek Discover commercial came out got like almost 2,000 likes.
Oh damn.
Get wrecked.
But like it's probably the second most.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we've got like I don't want to say, I guess it's kind of like a debate has been internally. How do we present ourselves as a company, as a brand? What is our goal in terms of an online presence? There's so many different ways that you can look at it, and there's so many different ways that you can approach it. And we've been trying to figure out what is it that we want to do, and also what are we able to do.
Right.
I think it's definitely good to have, I think, a person other than yourselves doing your social media, because you can I could take a step back and sort of look at you from a slightly more objective perspective.
Yeah.
But I also think that was maybe, what I went into it with was the idea of making it pretty much only about you guys and you as people. But I mean, you are a production company. You want to make films. Your aim is to work on that stuff. So obviously, maybe a combination of the two is sort of the direction that we're heading in.
Yeah, it's a hard thing I think it's something we're still trying to figure out as well. And like we see in the process, I mean, we haven't posted anything yet, so it's also, we don't have any information coming in. So it's a lot of, theory, and also figuring out how long does it take to make a video?
Yeah.
Is that worth it, spending that much time?
Yeah.
Does that get quicker? All these things kind of have to come together before we can kind of figure out what the best approach is.
I think in general, there's been like two different sides of the argument. There's been putting out more content that's simpler versus putting out less content that's more time is put into it.
Right.
And also kind of it's more creative in the sense that it's more like content.
Yeah.
It's not just updates, or it's not just information. It's something that's actually creative.
Yeah.
But obviously it is a balance between the two, but that's definitely been something that we've been arguing about. What's the best way to go about that?
Yeah, quite the argument. What is I just quickly to go off that, what is your experience the way we talk to each other sometimes? Because I think we are upfront about it. Like as soon as you came, we said, this is a very blunt space.
I think it varies. I think, it's a combination. I mean, you guys told me that you've, over the years, sort of figured out the best way to communicate.
I don't know if it's the
best.
It's just
it's a way.
That being said, being said, There have been a few tense moments.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, I was saying like, it's hard owning a company and it just being two people, because you're also two quite different people.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have to make a decision as one, obviously there are going to be times where your opinions differ, and you know, one of your opinions might not be the best route to go down.
Why are you looking at me?
I'm not there because you asked me the question.
No, but we're in such a unique situation. In the real world, two people can have different opinions,
Yeah.
and great.
Yeah.
In this situation, we have to almost all the time end up
With one.
agreeing on something to do to move forward, whether it be literally in an edit, because we edit together,
Yeah.
literally next to each other. Like
Yeah.
we will often spend a whole week sitting at the same computer, looking at the same edit. One of us is on the computer actually doing the physical editing. The other one's just as much editing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
And we'll be editing at the same time. And it's not, we can't just disagree. I mean, we have to reach an act. At the end of the day, something has to happen.
Right.
We have to make a choice, a decision. And it's the same when it comes to the business. We're not, it's definitely something that's different about this kind of relationship. Is that we have to kind of hash it out, and we have to say exactly how we feel, and sometimes that means not agreeing, but it's not just like, okay, great. You kind of have to, like, either someone feels like they're not getting what they want, or they don't feel like they're being heard in the same way, and you can't just walk away. You have to, like, keep going.
Yeah. That's
And
true.
I think the social media is something that's kind of new in that sense. I think a lot of the other things we do, we've had some, first of all, we have, like, data. Like, we know what works, whether it be,
Yeah.
I think filmmaking we know, right?
And it's also something
easy
that
to-
we can, it's a lot quicker of an answer in an edit. If we're arguing,
Yeah.
right, at some point it's like, all right, let's just do it.
Let's see what works.
And either it works or it doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
In the social media, it's like we're taking a approach that will probably take us a month from now to kind of get a good,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
You're not going to get any valid feedback
Right.
immediately.
Exactly.
Well, I mean,
So it makes sense to have those discussions
yeah.
before and make sure everybody understands.
Right, because you don't want to arrive a month later and then say, yeah, well, I didn't really want to be doing this
Exactly.
anyways.
Exactly.
Like, I knew it was not going to work. I mean, that's just like...
And ultimately, whatever decision we end up going with, it's still both of our decision. Even if somebody got their way through, it's still on both of us at the end of the day, right? Because you can't just go, oh, well, I never wanted that to begin with, so fuck you guys. There's still like a, it went through. That's what we decided to do. Everybody bears responsibility, although it's also a question of, like, what would be, again, we don't even know what a failure would be because we don't have any content coming out at this point. We keep saying is like, it's better than what we've been doing before, which is so piecemeal and, like, didn't really have a real strategy. Or
We've just never had the time to actually, like, put in the time to make something of it.
But I think also with social media, there is what my opinion is on, let me rephrase that. I feel like when you're editing a film or a longer, more challenging piece of content, obviously you spend a lot of time working on it, a lot of time thinking on it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with social media, everything's a lot shorter. And if you want to post, like, 5 days a week, 6 days a week, 7 days a week, you can't take that much time to think about it and that much time to work on it. So I feel like that is also something that might be a bit of a challenge, sort of transitioning into that, where you're used to spending, like, with this project, like 2 months on it, and then it comes out and you've made a lot of different decisions along the way. Whereas with social media, I feel like it's a lot shorter time frame where you have to make those decisions, and you post it once and then either people like it or they don't.
Yeah.
But then you move on to the next one. So
I think that's also why the conversations have felt like they've had so much like there's a lot at stake.
Yeah,
it's because you kind of set the direction in the beginning, and so this is kind of where we're aiming for, or this is the direction we want to go in, and now each individual decision doesn't have to be the biggest deal, because at least we're kind of in agreement that we're going this way. First of all, I think we are in agreement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's not really the issue.
No.
I think it's new.
I'll also say I think it's so interesting the way we can work with each other, being kind of, I don't know if we would say we're that different of people. We're obviously different in many ways, but like it does work together. Like the project that we come out with, I think is really a split between both of us, and both of us getting our ideas through, and both of us kind of coming together. And I always say like we kind of fill in each other's gaps in certain parts. And I think it comes out with a really interesting product, but it can be quite, but I like that more than like this, we perfectly agree on everything, because then you would never have to like kind of question your own decisions or have nobody there to go like, I don't know about that. Like I would do it this way. It kind of forces you then to go like, why do I like it this way? Why do I want to do it this way?
Yeah, exactly. And it forces you to have to verbalize it, which is like a difficult thing on its own.
Yeah, it can be.
How do I even explain what this is, or how this makes me feel, or what this is supposed to do? There's a lot of benefits to it, but it can be difficult in the moment. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Anything else?
We've got a lot of different kinds of content coming out, and we're definitely going to be we're experimenting to see what do people want to see, but also what do we feel good about putting out there. So it's not just about what does well. I think it has to be something that we enjoy and see potential in doing. There's a lot of exciting stuff coming out.
Yeah, I think so.
How much of it can we talk about?
Well, we've got some behind the scenes stuff. That gets a little bit under the surface about this project that we can't talk about, and how we've been working on it, which will be coming out obviously after the video.
What about as a whole though, not specifically what will be posted on which days, but like what the type of content?
Yeah, well, it's like a split between what's going on at Burning Boat and then also creative content.
Yeah.
I mean, we literally have a day devoted to something that we call blips, which is like, it can literally be anything. It's a space to test out, to experiment something creative that feels very different, something we haven't tried before. And often it's really weird because of that, but it's something that is like an outlet as well. And we wanted to share that part of what we do.
Yeah, because most of the stuff that we do, we have to refine it so much to have a finished product.
Yeah.
That sometimes you have ideas that you're like, this would be cool to do, but it doesn't really work in the context of anything that we're doing. Yeah. And I also just want to try it. I don't want to have to come up with the whole script and figure everything out. I just want to try the small thing that I think would be interesting. I think that's the space to just kind of force yourself to do that a little bit.
Yeah.
So
that's something that comes out one day. Then we've got behind the scenes videos that we're trying to do to give a little bit more context as to what goes on, funnily enough, behind the scenes.
And then we've got some insights.
Yeah, explain that one.
Interesting. I don't know if I fully understand it.
I understand it.
Oh, then explain it to us.
Explain what the insights are.
Ladies and gentlemen, our social media director.
I mean, it had there were a lot of different names we had for it.
Yeah.
The fears, insights, thoughts, challenges. I mean, I think it's a bit of a broad topic. Basically, anything that you've been thinking about, or anything that's been on your mind that you think is interesting and that you also think other people would be interested in learning about, whether it's specifically to do with your experiences or just your general impressions to do with life and filmmaking, personal stuff, anything really.
Yeah, I guess that one's more about us.
Yeah.
In a sense. That's something that we don't do very often.
No.
We don't like. I mean, we do the podcast, right?
Right.
Yeah. But that's, I mean.
But it makes it easier to have that. That's why it's so important to have you here as well, because it's somebody who's pushing us in things that, that is something we're a little bit uncomfortable with. But you've said you see the benefit of that.
Yeah, definitely.
And I'm curious to try it out,
first
right?
First of all, I'm not like, you're not the only one who's thinks
No,
that.
I know you guys.
Yeah. It's just something we haven't done.
Yeah, I would say I'm a little bit more hesitant, or I was a little bit more hesitant, But that's why it's helpful for me to have somebody who's purely focusing on that, and it's just kind of like, I don't need to think about it too much. Let me trust what you're doing.
True. I mean,
see kind of what comes out of it. And again, it's like the bar is at fucking zero right now.
There's also, I mean, the more you think about it, the more you'd probably be hesitant about like, are people going to be interested in that or not? Whereas,
just something that's like, hey guys, because we even talked about at some point, like we wanted to hire a manager or something, just to kind of kick us in the butt at times. Like we would want somebody to tell us like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Like, why the fuck aren't you guys posting on this? Or like, why aren't you doing this? Or why isn't the website updated? Yeah. Somebody who's quite like harsh with us in a way, which is like, of course we should be doing that. We're just not thinking about that at the moment,
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's limits to being two people in a company when we get into a project.
It's also just, there's no time. I mean, it's like to spend a day out of 5 days in a week on social media. It's just impossible for us. Yeah. We're just not at that point where we could justify the cost of kind of not skipping a day, right? But that's more of a long-term investment. It's not something that kind of gets paid off immediately. So it's hard to keep that in mind when there's so many other pressing things.
Yeah. That's true.
Which is why it's cool to have somebody who's like purely focusing on that, can be focusing on the long term, and isn't really necessarily distracted by the same things that we're distracted by.
Yeah.
And it's also, we are in a different space social media wise because we have gained a significant sized following, significant compared to what we used to have.
Yeah.
That there is actually an opportunity to really engage with a highly engaged audience.
Right. Right.
And so that's we are at a very unique time in terms of that.
Yeah. I think generally though, nowadays social media plays such a big role in everyone's lives. I mean, people in my generation, the previous generation, the next generation, they're all a big focus.
Are we the same generation?
Yes.
Are we?
I think so, right?
Why wouldn't we?
What are we, like 3 years apart?
3 years, yeah. But yeah, I mean, social media plays such a big role in everyone's lives nowadays. It would be a shame to... I think it's important to have there be a focus on it. Yeah. And obviously with you guys, your main focus is on like films and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah, if we had to pick,
we'd
pick the films, but we're not in a position to have to pick one over the other.
Yeah.
But I think you're getting at something that also is maybe what's making it not so straightforward, which is that I don't think we know exactly what we're gonna, or if we're gonna get anything out of social media. Like, what is it we're trying to achieve with it? It's such a vague feeling in a lot of ways. It's not like, oh, we're gonna get a big following on social media so that we can sell merch, or so that we can promote our film, or so that we can get sponsors. It's like there's not like a specific goal that we're trying to aim for when it comes to social media. So it's also difficult to like come up with a strategy because you don't quite know where we're going.
That's true. Although,
what are we going for?
I feel like with social media, it's just the focus should be on like communicating with your audience, because there aren't that many ways where you can directly communicate with.
Yeah.
Like even with the podcast, obviously people can comment on it, or with like the documentary, for example, people can watch it, leave reviews, all of that. And when you have screenings, those kind of things, you can speak to people, but social media is a way to directly communicate with, or maybe not directly, but indirectly communicate with your audience and see what they like about the things that you're doing.
And it's the first time that it has actually felt rewarding. ever on social media in the last couple of months since getting new followers after releasing the Seek Discomfort commercial. That to me has been so rewarding first of all, it's nice to hear people saying they like our stuff. Like, I'm not going to lie. That's very nice to hear. Mm-hmm. But also we live in such a bubble all the time. Like, it's always just the two of us. And when we're making content for clients, we don't really ever get to see the direct feedback on that video. It's also not something that's very personal to us necessarily. Yeah. And it's the first time that we've made something that we really want to hear what people thought and kind of like talk about it and improve in a way that like involves more than just us.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I remember you saying that it was something that you did a lot of reading about, and it was something that you were interested in.
Social media.
Yeah, looking into, obviously.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's obviously hard if you have a lot of other things that you have to prioritize over that. And I think I'm definitely happy to help communicate your vision, even if you don't know what that is yet.
I was talking about that it's the first time that there feels like there's meaningful engagement on social media, something where I want to be part of it, which is super exciting. I think that the main thing, at least for me, has been the documentary. I mean, we put out like a call to action asking people who had experience with anxiety and depression to submit either a personal story of theirs or some kind of creative piece that explored that topic. It's such a broad topic. And it was a complete experiment. I mean, when Yes Theory put out the video saying that if you're a struggling business, submit something by tomorrow, that's the first time I started thinking about the documentary again. It's in that kind of way. Mm-hmm. And it was something that I just made a split-second decision about. Let's try and involve more people. Let's see if this can become something that's more than just about my brother's story, and ask people to submit their own experiences, not knowing what was going to come of that. So it was, at first it was like, oh my God, this is so exciting. I can't wait to see what this is and what's going to happen. And like, you think of all the different outcomes that might come from this. And then quickly, I just started to feel like, whoa, this is a lot of responsibility all of a sudden.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is. Feels like it as well, but I think there's a lot of potential there, especially with the combination of the social media and the documentary, as a means of getting it out there to people. Not just Instagram, other like Facebook, for example.
Right.
But
because from one day to another, you have people complete strangers who are opening up about their own experiences on such a deep level on camera to another complete stranger. The amount of trust that they're placing in me or in us as filmmakers is suddenly complete. I hadn't thought about that, to be completely honest. I hadn't thought about what that would make me feel like. So it has dramatically changed my entire perspective on the documentary, seeing what people had to say. Not that I'm like surprised. It's not like I'm like, oh my God, now I have this new understanding of what's going on. I feel like I have a lot of experiences with this topic, both personally, but also through the experience of people close to me. But I never had considered the effect that would have in that way. So I mean, we also haven't had time to really, or I haven't had time to really sit down and think about, well, what's next? Because then, like a few days later, Amar calls me on the phone and it's like, hey, do you want to work on this project? And of course we said yes.
Yeah.
So we moved on to that so quickly, and it's just been sitting there. I mean, we have a folder on Dropbox where like 50 plus people have submitted something to the documentary.
That's pretty crazy, going from it just being about one person, basically your brother and you and maybe us a little bit, to then a whole group of people that you've never even met before. I think that's pretty incredible.
Yeah. It is. It's I think it's made me think about what my own motivations were to make this film in the first place, and really start to understand what that might have been versus what it is now, because it's something that's been in the works for 4 years. And I think at first it was, and still is, but I think it was very much at first I just wanted to try and see if I could help my brother out. And then it maybe transitioned into being a little bit more about like, well, if I feel like I have some kind of something to say to my brother that might help him, well, maybe someone else might also be able to get something out of it. To then realizing how complex all these issues are, that there's not really any kind of right answer or anything that you can say to someone or anything you can show someone that would make them I think that the goal was to try and help a lot of people. I don't necessarily know if that's the goal anymore. I think maybe the goal is more to explore it rather than try to give a bunch of advice or a bunch of examples for what you can do. I think it's a lot more of an emotional piece rather than like a step-by-step, here's what we did to kind of help ourselves out of depression, or what we did to feel like we were able to tackle our anxiety. I feel like it's a lot more just about people helping each other and being together, rather than it is about like, it's kind of like trying to focus it more on that. But I think it's a unique situation to be in, have been working on a project for so long at this part in my life, because I feel like I've matured a lot in the past 4 years. I mean, I was quite young when I was only like just out of university when I kind of came up with this idea. I mean, it's really just a topic. It's not really an idea. I mean, it turned into an idea. It's morphed and changed so many times. I think it's a good thing, because it's such an important topic that I really want to do it right.
Definitely.
There can also be like a little bit of a reason to keep not doing it, maybe.
That was there was a question that I had. I would be interested to know whether there's been any hesitation over this time about your approach to the subject, just because it is quite a sensitive topic, and your opinion on it has changed since then, I'm assuming. And
it's developed.
Okay. Has there been a point where you've thought, well, maybe I'm not the right person to be telling this story, or to be...
I think I've realized that I'm the right person to tell a very specific story, and I'm definitely not the right person to try and tell the story, because that doesn't exist. I think that's taken a while to realize, because I've been trying to figure out, like, why do certain things feel like they totally make sense for me and my brother personally, but they don't quite translate into, well, everyone else should know about this. And so there's a weird feeling of like, why is this actually in the film? And then trying to fix that by making it more vague, for example, or less specific. I think that was a big part of the call to action was, well, I think something really powerful would be to make it about everyone, not just about my brother, which I still think is a really good idea and true. But then at the same time, I think I've realized that, but the core story is still very simple, and it's just about me and my brother. And I can only really tell that story because that's the only story I know. And I think that's something that's very recently making a lot more sense. That it is okay to make it very specific. That doesn't mean you can't open it up to everyone else as well. And I think that's actually the way to do it.
Yeah.
Because if you start to make it not anything specific, no one's going to be able to relate to it, because it's never going to really get into any specific thing, even though that might be very unique to that individual. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think I always say that's my favorite part about films, is when you watch something, you're like, oh, that happens to me. Like something so specific that the director wrote, or the way an actor acted something, or a situation, that those are the moments that you're like, make you feel less lonely almost. Like, holy shit, this happens. This thing that I thought was so pertinent to me is actually at least somewhat universal.
There's this weird paradox there, because I think of, okay, I can really relate to something that I used to do when I was growing up, but like maybe someone else is, but like the vast majority aren't going to have this exact childhood.
Right.
So, well, then I'm not going to put it in. But then, that's what my childhood was.
Right.
So I can't possibly write anything else that's authentic or that's real. I would have to be making it up to try and make it something that everyone can kind of feel like they're thinking about the same way.
How do you even know?
It doesn't exist.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so by making it super, like, this is exactly what happened, this is exactly how I felt, or this is exactly how my brother felt, not trying to say that that's how everyone else feels or how everyone else should feel or this is what everyone else should do. You allow it to, at least it's real, and then hopefully some people will feel that and also be able to see the things that, wow, that is exactly what I felt as well. I think that's taken a really long time to like understand that that's actually a big part of the motivation behind it. And then I think also just having a baby completely changed everything about the way I think that this weird thing has happened where I think when Oscar was born, he looked so much like my brother when he was born, at least for me, that I'm suddenly able to see my brother in a totally different way. As if, like, the way I look at my son is obviously completely different than the way I look at my brother, but somehow I'm able to picture my brother as a baby in a way that I've never thought about before. And it just completely, it's really changed everything. I feel like the whole story has started to become a lot more about, like, how can we return to feeling like children again? That there's so much that's lost in growing up, like the playful aspect of not caring about what other people think and literally just having fun. I mean, it sounds so simple, but yeah, there's a strange connection that's been made in my head between seeing my son and then seeing childhood footage of my brother at that age, and then seeing me, who's also there, but obviously is just, a few years older, but has no idea of what's going on or like what any of this even means. Now being able to see it in a completely different way. I think there's a really interesting story there that's universal, but is so specific to me because it's my life and my brother's life. But that's good, because then I can really do something real with it. I'm very excited about that part of it. And I think it's transitioned from how can this documentary have an impact or make a difference to how can this documentary add to the conversation as a whole. Like, it's not some kind of end there's no like statement at the end that you're meant to like. It's not an answer. It's purely just something to add to this pool of other pieces of content or the conversation in general.
Yeah.
And I think the way you do that is by making it super specific and not so general.
I mean, that's the only way you can really do it. Like, you only know your story and you only know your brother's story.
Yeah.
And that's also the real part of it, you know.
But obviously there's another side to it. I mean, I have, you know, like 40 people sitting in front of the camera telling me what their experience is. Some in like a lot of detail and others in less detail. But I could take that and try to create a story that is more representative of a much larger group of people.
Yeah.
That's also something that you could do.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, I think with the topic in general, a lot of people experience that kind of like anxiety and depression, or any kind of mental hurdles in their life. So that is something, even though it'll vary, like the specific things that people experience will vary from person to person, but that shared trauma is something that everyone can relate to in some way, whether it's in a big way or a small way. You know, so even though the story is specific to you and your brother, I feel like it has a lot of potential to reach a wider audience because of that.
I would agree. I think there's some sort of combination that wouldn't make it feel like, oh, this isn't a specific story anymore, but that might add a larger context, or, you know, there could be specific things that run through multiple people's situations or experiences. I mean, again, like you said, I don't think there's a right way to do it. I think there's the way you want to do it, or the way you think is going to work best, and that's the way to go with. Whatever you like at the end of the day.
Yeah, obviously I agree, but I don't think I think I underestimated how much other people's experiences would weigh on me.
Right.
Like hearing someone talk about what they went through and knowing that maybe what the documentary is going to say or make that person feel, maybe not, they won't feel very good. Maybe it might really not be what they are
right
expecting or imagining or hoping for.
Yeah.
That's a new element for me.
That's gotta be, I mean, I'm just thinking of like a lot of films where that would be, yeah, that is pressure. You know, if you make Schindler's List or something, or if you make anything that has to do with real people's experiences, or, you know, there's even films where it's like, you know, the family at the end of the day just hates the film or something, or is like against
that's
the film.
not what it was like. That's not how I feel.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not
but
what
all you can kind of do is like
give your part of.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah. I'm not trying to lessen I'm trying to sort of relate to it.
Because it's kind of like you ask something of someone,
yeah,
and they give that to you.
Yeah.
There's like, I don't know if it's like a biological something. It feels like it needs to be reciprocated. There feels like I feel like I owe certain people something.
Right, because they put the effort in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They trusted me. I asked them to do something, and they helped me.
Right.
And they put their trust in the project, not knowing at all. Like, I can't imagine sometimes like some of the things people sent, just putting it in the hands of a complete stranger. Like, they have no idea what I'm going to do with it.
Right.
You know, it's a lot. Like, I definitely feel like I have some feelings and some thoughts that people wouldn't agree with. Some people wouldn't agree with. I mean, I'm not talking about like anything controversial or anything like that, but it's just, I don't know. It just made me think that like that's it's just a lot of trust, and I feel like there's an element of respect that needs to be exercised. It's all very hypothetical. It's not like there's something I'm imagining doing with any one submission that like is going to make them look bad or is going to highlight something that I see as problematic. Nothing like that.
Or if you took them out of context or something.
Yeah, nothing like that. But purely just like it opened my eyes to like, yes, it's such a universal topic, but it's also it can be viewed in so many different ways. People have such different experiences of this one topic that often gets talked about as if it's like everyone kind of feels this way. It's like, this way, I mean, what, like, we feel bad sometimes, like, about what, and what do you do about it, or where does it come from? Can it even change? Am I in control? Like, all of those questions are completely different from person to person. And I have my opinions because I've lived my life, and someone else has their opinions because they've had a completely different experience. But I think the vast majority of people submitted to the documentary with a feeling of, this is something I want to be part of this. You know, we're all part of this together, which is true. Yeah, I mean, that's true. But yeah, what I just said, it's not everyone has the same experience of it. Yeah. So it's not just about like, I think that's what's interesting actually, and that's why I'm thinking about it so much. What's interesting is that it's not just about raising awareness about these topics. I don't think that's the only point. Because then it would be, you know, the more people who are talking about it, the more people who are involved in it, the better. I mean, this is all very fresh, as in like we just started looking at this project again.
Yeah,
so
for one
these
day.
are still very raw thoughts and feelings that might change, and they're good feelings. Maybe I sound a little bit serious about everything. Yeah. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
No, it is.
I think the part is interesting also that when you work on something like a feature film, it is such a long time, and we're not like super young, but we're still, I feel like I'm progressing very quickly, that you do get that sense that if a project takes you a year or two to do, you're like a totally different person by the end of the 2 years. Totally. And there is that like weird, it's like the first time you edit something, by the time you finished editing it, you're like, oh, the beginning's terrible. I need to go back.
Because you've gotten better.
Right. And then you go back and you finish it again and you're like, oh, I'm even better now. Now the beginning sucks again. And you're like in this constant loop of trying to have the product represent kind of where you are at that moment. Yeah,
definitely.
Which I think is, there's two sides to it, like you said. The one that totally makes sense, and there's the one that you also want to finish something at the end of the day. Some people can just continue working on something.
Yeah, it's a huge part of it. I think that's another element, is that it's just such an ongoing project for very good reasons.
Yeah.
It's not like I haven't been working on it by choice.
How do you feel then about how do you feel now looking back at the trip and the footage from the trip?
Yeah, we should mention Robin was on that shoot.
Yeah.
How long was that ago? 3 years ago?
3 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When Matt shot his documentary, he had flown both of us out. And that's pretty funny to think that you're working with us now 3 years later.
Yeah.
So you're asking how do I feel about it now?
Yeah, compared to, obviously there was that momentum of the project at the time, and then watching it after you filmed like a massive amount of footage, going through all of that, and then now having a bit of a break since the last time that you looked at it. How do you feel about it compared to the last time you looked at it, but then also 3 years ago?
I see it as a very strong collection of footage that really captures what the mindset was then. And it'll work really well to show how that is so different now. It's such a complete contrast to the mindset that is now. It used to be very focused on literally splitting up the 7-day trip into day 1, we're going to change our perspectives. Day 2, we're going to identify what's holding us back. Day 3, we're going to crush it. Day 4, we're going to set our vision. Day 5, we're going to get to that goal by building a path, creating a path, planning out our future. Day 6, we're going to reflect on where we are now.
Yeah.
I might have missed a step in there because there's definitely 7.
Was there like a rest day? Oh, you said reflection, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, day 7, commit to this new thing, whatever that is, which I still 100% believe in. That's it's not like anything has changed about that. I think it's just what's changed is just that it's not that simple. There's so many more. It's not even that. It is that simple. Like that is what works. Sometimes it takes longer than 7 days, often. I think what's changed is just that that's not necessarily the most interesting story.
Yeah. I mean, I think personally what's interesting is the journey of where it came from 3 years ago.
Yeah.
To now, I mean, and then however much longer it takes.
The old 20-year film.
I think I've just become I've become so obsessed with the idea of story that like it almost is all consuming. Like what's the best story? Because if you can get that, you can get so many other things. It's like story is everything. And it actually is, because even if you want to talk about this subject in a certain way, if the story isn't there, no one's going to be able to understand what it is you're trying to say about it. So you might as well try and find the right story or the best story within this whole thing, because then at least you have a shot at communicating something, getting people to think about something in a certain way, or not even in a certain way, just to think about something, period, because they're able to engage with the story. I think that's what's maybe changed, is I've understood a lot more how that's really the only way that you can talk about anything in film is through a good story. Not just by saying, this is what I want to talk about and this is what I think is important. Well, if the story isn't there to talk about those things, you can't.
Right.
You can't just force it. Well, you can, but it's going to be shit. It's not going to come across because it's not there. It's not real. It's not, especially in a documentary. That story just isn't there, even though that's what you think is important. It's not there. So what is actually there? Like that's kind of what you have to go for, or what you have to go with.
You say you can't create a story, or you're trying to find?
I think you can you can create the story, but you can't. It still has to be because it's a documentary.
Yeah.
So we're not writing it.
No.
So yeah, I am saying that.
Saying what?
You can't create the story.
Yeah.
You have to find it.
You can kind of steer it.
Yes.
But there's definitely always we talk a lot about ideas, and then there's the well, this is what would be great. This would fit into everything we're thinking about. And if it wasn't that, you would have to find another way to.
Yeah. It's like saying, oh, this scene would be great. This scene in the documentary would be great if right before the final climax,
you have an all is lost.
I break my leg.
Right.
Maybe we should set that up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
And if your story is relying on that kind of thing to happen, and it doesn't, I think there's a problem in your overall thinking.
Yeah.
You can't rely on something like that to happen because it's out of your control.
Yeah.
So that reveals a certain flaw in what you're trying to do, because you're trying to make it something before it's actually happened.
Yeah.
So there's also an element of like just letting it happen and documenting it. And that's kind of what I'm leaning towards. It's like, what happened? What happened? Like, what is the story? And to me, it's kind of boiling down to, like, I just got out our old family albums and just looked at baby photos of me and my brother. Like, that's a big part of it. That's a huge part of it, which I think is a good thing.
Could also be that actually it's much more likely for it to follow a story arc, because art reflects life, and I think a lot of times it actually will just kind of naturally go in that direction.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
I find
those are the
because
parts
sometimes you watch documentaries, you're like, how did that happen so perfectly?
Yeah.
But actually, like, if you just film something for long enough, like, you're gonna have a moment that everything goes to shit, and then somebody finds their way out of it. Like, that sort of natural story is just
that's why
it
it
part
works.
of life.
That's why
we like it. Yeah,
because it's real.
And
it's how life is.
We see ourselves in it.
It's the part that we create. Because I did feel weird to say no, we can't create the story, because I didn't feel like that was actually true just before when I said that.
Right.
The story is there, and it's your job to be able to like put it onto screen.
Right. Or you might go, okay, we want this to happen here. It turns out to be a horrible disaster. It might just be the wrong. You thought it was the end of the story, and actually, you're just going into Act 3.
Exactly.
You know?
That's exactly what's happening.
So it's more your perspective on where you are in the story, and you just want it to finish, but you might not be quite there yet.
And it's such a this isn't a documentary about the first guy to do this.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
It's not a documentary about some completely unique character.
It's not a biggest, best, fastest documentary.
Most different, most weird.
Yeah.
It's very like down to earth, regular guy, regular people. There's nothing extraordinary going on. It's a universal topic. So what's the thing that's going to make it something different?
Yeah.
And maybe that's the wrong thought. It's not to make it, it's like, how can you make it? By making it about the people who it is about, everyone is interesting. I honestly think that.
Yeah, I think the thing is, if you find it interesting, there will be somebody else who finds it interesting.
Yes.
Right? And then it's up to you to have your interest reflect in the film. I like that. I forget who said that. I think it's like Tim Ferriss or something who says like, if you just do what you want to do, like the odds that there's, I don't know, 100,000 other people out there out of 7 billion people who like
you're
the same.
not that different.
No, you're not.
You're not that special.
Yeah.
But you are.
I know. Thank you.
Yeah. So it's exciting to be working on it again. We're still it's still happening.
Yeah.
For a moment there, we kind of went quiet.
Long story short,
we're here.
It's still happening.
There's a lot of exciting things happening. A lot of super exciting stuff coming out.
Yeah.
On our Instagram specifically. That's definitely where the majority of things are happening.
Yeah. Instagram podcast will be back, season 3.
Coming out.
With the sick new intro.
Sick new intro, yeah.
Sick new intro. And I guess we'll hold off on if any other stuff comes out. We'll just keep updating.
Maybe Facebook.
Yeah, that's what I meant. But it's we'll just mention it once it's up.
Yeah.
Cool. And we will see you next week on the Burning Boat Show.